I never thought a piano could bring tears. How a heartless director humiliated a boy. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The moment my heart shattered into a million pieces. The day the spotlight turned on me, and I became the object of laughter instead of admiration. I was just a kid, standing there with trembling hands and dreams larger than life. My heart raced as I sat before that grand piano, the polished surface reflecting my fear. The auditorium was a vast chasm of faces, some familiar, others strangers. Whispers filled the air like a haunting melody. "He's going to play, right?" a voice piped up from the back. It stung. I could feel my cheeks burn, the weight of the audience's expectations pressing down on me. My fingers hovered above the keys, trembling like leaves in a storm. My mom sat front row, eyes sparkling with hope, clenching her purse tightly. "You've got this, sweetheart," she had whispered, but her voice was drowned in my own doubts. Mr. Calhoun, the director, smooth and slick like oil, stood to the side. His arms crossed, a tight smile plastered on his face. He'd promised me a moment to shine. But now, I felt like bait in a cruel game. Just a boy with aspirations, trapped under the glare of the spotlight and the weight of judgment. The first note rang out, piercing the silence. It echoed, cascading through the room. But as I continued, an unsettling hush enveloped the crowd. I stumbled over a chord, confusion painted on my face. Mr. Calhoun's eyes darkened, disappointment seeping from his every pore. "Is this all you can do?" he boomed, his voice cutting through the music. My hands froze. Gasps rippled through the audience like a wildfire. I could hear a couple of kids snicker, their laughter slicing through my fragile armor. My heart raced as if trying to escape my chest. I took a deep breath, but it felt thick, like inhaling smoke. Every beat echoed my shame. How had this happened? Dreams plummeting into despair, all because of a wrong note. My eyes darted to the crowd, searching for comfort, but met only faces twisted in mockery. "Pathetic," he sneered, turning away, dismissing me like I was nothing. My stomach churned. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the crowd. Each person seemed to morph into a faceless blur, their laughter, a roaring tide threatening to drown me. Before I could regain my composure, the only thing left was the cold silence that follows a heartbeat, a moment frozen in time. My mind raced. Did I want to flee? Or stand my ground? The struggle filled me like a storm, swirling pain and humiliation. What was supposed to be a shining moment had turned into a nightmare. The piano kept its secrets, the notes now turned shards of glass. And as I looked toward my mom, her expression shattered all over again, I knew I wasn't just humiliated. This moment felt heavy, ominous, a cruel twist of fate I didn't see coming. Could I ever pick myself up again? Or was this the end of my story? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air felt heavy as I staggered off the stage, each step heavy with the weight of my embarrassment. My heart thudded against my ribcage like a prisoner trying to escape. The thick, tangy taste of humiliation lingered on my tongue, mingling with the bitter sting of tears I refused to shed. My mother's eyes, wide and shimmering, followed me as I walked past. I could see the glimmer of unshed tears reflected in them. That same spark of hope now flickering like a dying flame. "Honey, come here," she whispered, reaching her arms out. I stumbled into her embrace, the warmth of her love momentarily easing the jagged edges of my shame. "Mom, I messed up," I stammered, burying my face in her shoulder, feeling the softness of her sweater against my cheek. I felt her gentle hand stroking my hair, but I was trapped in my own despair, replaying the scene over and over in my mind. "That man doesn't know your heart," she murmured, her voice steady despite the tremor I knew was hidden beneath. "You're still my brilliant pianist, and no one can take that away from you." But her words felt distant, like echoes from the past against the sharp reality of the present. I could sense the judging eyes around us, the stifled laughter trailing like ghosts. The auditorium was alive with chatter, unfurling like butterflies taking flight, all mocking what was supposed to be my moment. As we made our way back, Mr. Calhoun's voice still echoed. Pathetic. Each syllable was a blade, cutting deeper with every repetition in my mind. I wanted to respond, to argue, to show him how hard I had worked for this moment, but it was swallowed by the overwhelming tide of self-doubt. Weeks passed, and though the physical wounds healed, the scars ran deeper. School felt like a battlefield. Friends I had once laughed with maintained a cautious distance, as if my failure was contagious. I wore my hoodie-like armor, hoping it would shield me from the looks, the whispers, the pity I could feel emanating from every corner. But life has a way of surprising you in the most unexpected ways. One grey Friday, as I lingered after school to avoid the chaos of the lunchroom, I found myself seeking solace in the empty practice room, a sanctuary amidst the storm. The piano sat there, untouched since that fateful day, its ivory keys gleaming under the dim light. I approached it slowly, heart hammering in my chest. What if it remembered? What if every note would trigger the memories of my defeat? Tentatively, I sat down. My hands hovered for a moment, trembling in anticipation. I closed my eyes, inhaling the familiar scent of polished wood and lost dreams, and pressed the keys. A soft, lonely note erupted, filling the silence. Another followed, cautiously, like unsure footsteps on a winding path. "Hey!" A voice broke through the music, and I startled, jerking my hands from the keys. I turned to see Mika, a classmate I barely exchanged words with, standing in the doorway, her bright eyes filled with an unexpected warmth. "Are you playing, too?" was just I stumbled, feeling exposed. She smiled softly, that genuine kind of smile that reminded me of the little moments of joy that still existed. It sounded beautiful. "I didn't know you played." "I used to," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them, laden with the weight of the past. "Not anymore. Why not?" She pressed gently, stepping inside the room, as if stepping into a world I thought I had shut away for good. I thought of the laughter, the humiliation, the feeling of being stripped bare in front of everyone. "I messed up. I just don't think I can anymore." "Everyone messes up sometimes," Mika said, moving closer, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "It doesn't define you. You should play." I looked down at the piano, the notes whispering secrets only I could hear, and felt a flicker of something, maybe hope. "What if I mess up again?" "Then you mess up again," she shrugged, grinning. "But you don't have to stop helping it sing just because of one bad performance. You owe it to yourself to try again." Her words were a lifeline. Maybe she was right. The idea of playing golf, letting music flow through me again, brought back that glimmer I had almost forgotten existed. My heart flickered with uncertainty alongside a touch of exhilaration, yearning to stretch its wings again. Mika nodded toward the piano. "Come on, just one note." For me, with her encouragement, I placed my fingers tentatively on the keys once more. But just as I was about to play, a shadow fell over the room, and I caught sight of Mr. Calhoun standing in the doorway, arms crossed, a smirk on his face. "What's happening here?" he sneered, his presence darkening the room in an instant. My heart dropped. Caught in a web of emotions, where old fears battled against newfound courage, I hesitated, the weight of the past pressing down, but Mika stood next to me, firm and unyielding. I could feel the spark of defiance igniting, a whisper to face this challenge head-on. The stakes had never felt higher, the path forward uncertain. But as I glanced at Mika, I knew I had to play. Would I rise from this moment, or would the echo of humiliation consume me again? The clash of hope and fear surged through me, a tempest threatening to unleash at any moment. And all at once, I realized, this battle wasn't just for me anymore. The silence draped around me like a shroud as I squared my shoulders, readying myself to face Mr. Calhoun's derision. I could feel Mika's unwavering support beside me, like an anchor in a swirling sea of anxiety. My fingers hovered over the keys, trembling but determined to play, to reclaim my lost spark. "What's the matter? Afraid to play for an audience?" he taunted, a derisive smile curling on his lips. I swallowed hard, the familiar taste of fear mixing with the bittersweet pull of ambition. Would I let him win again? Why don't you show us what you've got? His voice dripped with contempt, but I could sense a shift in the atmosphere. The way Mika stood firm, the way her eyes radiated calm, gave me the strength to respond. "Maybe I will," I said slowly, surprise washing over me at the firmness in my own voice. Beneath Mr. Calhoun's piercing gaze, I felt small, but the rhythm of my heartbeat began to morph into a pulse of defiance. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes for just a moment as memories of laughter and exuberance danced in my mind. Just one note. That's all I needed to start, one note to break the storm of fear. I pressed a key, the sound reverberating through the stillness, bright and clear. I felt a relief wash over me, but as I continued, each note I played began slowly peeling back layers of trepidation. Mika's presence was like a buoy, keeping me afloat amid the waves of self-doubt that had threatened to drown me. I played tentatively at first, but with each passing measure, my confidence grew, the warm memories of late-night practices and joyful breakthroughs flooding back into my heart. I lost myself in the music, pouring my soul into every beat, the notes rising and falling like the tide. But no sooner had I begun to regain my footing than Mr. Calhoun's scoff erupted in the room, slicing through my concentration. "You think that's music? You'll never amount to anything with that pitiful performance." It should have crushed my spirit, but instead, I felt a spark ignite within me. My resolve deepened, and before I knew it, I was playing with fervor a wild release, a melody that echoed not just the notes on the piano, but the fight within me. "Keep going," Mika encouraged, her voice rising above my fears, and I rallied to her faith, weaving together a composition that reflected both vulnerability and triumph. Each key represented a heartbeat, a whisper of resilience against the storm within. But Mr. Calhoun's footfalls echoed louder as he stepped into the room fully, his expression a convoluted mix of irritation and disbelief. "Stop wasting your time, both of you. You think you can just ignore what happened on that stage?" There it was, the bitter reminder of failure that hung between us, dense and suffocating. Yet somehow, I found my footing. "I'm not ignoring it," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm choosing to rise above it." Mika's smile widened, filling the void around us with warmth, as if her mere presence could cut through the cold darkness radiating from him. I glanced back at the keys, and the music grew more intricate, more vibrant. Every note sang of the struggle, telling a story of strength I was only now beginning to understand. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted, rattling the moment. Mr. Calhoun, his wrath brewing, kicked over a music stand, sending sheet music cascading to the floor like confetti of dreams lost. My heart raced, panic slipping in. "See? All you bring is chaos. You're a joke," he spat, eyes like daggers. But standing there, staring down at the wreckage where my ambitions had once lain, I felt something shift inside me, a clarity unusual and powerful. I saw how every moment of negativity had forged a part of me, how the challenge had lit a fire I wasn't aware existed. "I'm done being a joke," I said, every word a step towards reclaiming my voice. I leaned into the music again, pouring every ember of pain and uncertainty into the sound, ready to transform it into something beautiful. To my astonishment, the notes resonated louder, breaking through the oppressive atmosphere, drawing the attention of a few curious students passing by in the hallway. Their footsteps paused, their eyes drawn to the unfolding scene. For a fleeting second, my fear disintegrated into whispers of hope. Perhaps, in this scattered moment of turmoil, I could find the bridge between despair and connection. But then, a jarring bolt of realization hit me. The auditorium doors were wide open, exposing the vulnerable heart of my performance. The entire school now a witness to my vulnerability and the raw edges of my journey. What if this became another moment of ridicule? What if I faltered before the eyes of my peers and then, crowned in humiliation again, could not find my way back? The looming anxiety threatened to spiral, but as I caught sight of Mika's unyielding spirit, her trust in me, unwavering as the northern star, I felt a sense of empowerment surge forth. As the final chord lingered in the air, I saw nods of acknowledgement replace the frowns. The faint sound of applause trickled in tentatively, uncertain at first but growing stronger, a wave of sound sweeping through the practice room. Relief intertwined with disbelief, but then Mr. Calhoun, his face a mask of rage and embarrassment, stepped forward, his malevolence boiling over. "Enough!" His tone was thunderous, threatening to drown out the unity being forged in the room. In that moment, just as the music of hope felt close enough to grasp, I realized that while I had fought for my own heart, I was now defending a shared space filled with the warmth of encouragement. My eyes widened in shock as the atmosphere thickened, an impending storm brewing on the horizon. What fate awaited us all as I stood there, teetering between fear and defiance? Would we rise together in solidarity, or would the shadows of doubt envelop us once more? The tension was palpable, heavy in the air, wrapping itself around us like the sound of the last note still lingering, waiting to determine whether the echoes of hope or darkness would prevail. As the applause faded into an awkward silence, a dull ache settled in my chest. My breaths came in rapid succession, the weight of Mr. Calhoun's disdain pressing heavily against my ribcage. The echoes of my performance still bounced around the room, but I could feel the stark reality of disapproval lurking at the edges like a predator waiting to strike. Do you really think a moment of applause changes anything? Mr. Calhoun's voice was a sneer layered with bitter ice. You think they will forget your disgrace? Each word was a sharp knife, cutting deeper as the remnants of my exhilaration bled away. Mika stepped forward, her stance radiating defiance, her voice breaking like sunlight through the storm clouds. That was more than just a moment, Mr. Calhoun. It was courage. And you can take that away from him, courage? He spat, disbelief etched onto his face, but I could see his grip falter, just a hair. You're delusional if you believe this will carry him. What do you think this applause means? They feel pity. That's all. I flinched at his words, but there, within the day's chaos, something ignited in me. It was barely a whisper at first, a flicker of familiar light. I wanted to scream out, to defend not just my moment, but the budding connection I felt among my peers. But the bravado swelled and receded, tethered to the anchor of fear and uncertainty. Suddenly, a soft voice broke through the tension, gentle and soothing, like a balm to my frayed nerves. Actually, we were impressed by his courage, Mr. Calhoun. It was Jenny, one of the quiet girls from my class, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, hands nervously twisting a bracelet around her wrist. He showed us how strong he is. It was beautiful. A wave of warmth surged through me, but the gravity of Mr. Calhoun's stare dragged me back down. You think being a joke is beautiful? He mocked, throwing his head back in laughter that dripped with venom. You're all fools for patting this pathetic display on the back. You'll see him for what he is soon enough. Maybe you're the fool for failing to recognize real talent, Mika shot back, fire sparking in her eyes. You wouldn't know beauty if it hit you in the face. Her words hung in the air like fresh paint, daring to challenge the thick cloud of negativity that swirled around us. The other students shifted, some biting their lips to suppress laughter, others peering at Mr. Calhoun in newfound rebellion. I felt a rush of hope flutter within me like a caged bird, uncertain yet desperate for freedom. Could it be that a collective strength was stirring in this room? Could we draw courage from each other, even when we felt so small? Mr. Calhoun turned, his face pale with rage, but then he seemed to dissolve inward, as though he were deflating. I won't continue to waste my time here, he said finally, his voice a low growl. You can all enjoy your delusions of grandeur, but remember, he glared at me, and I felt my insides twist. You're not above the consequences of your failures. And just like that, he stormed out, leaving the door swinging behind him, a gust of cold air trailing in his wake. The tension snapped, replaced by a hum of whispers and the nervous laughter of my classmates. I caught Mika's eye, her expression a mix of triumph and concern. Then, slowly, a ripple of applause began anew, this time vibrant and full of life, celebrating not just my moment but the stand we had taken together against the wave of negativity. It was electrifying, and I couldn't help but smile, a wellspring of warmth rising in me. But amidst the cheers and clapping, I couldn't shake the weight of Mr. Calhoun's parting words. Consequences of your failures echoed in my mind like a haunting refrain. What consequences could he possibly mean? Would he retaliate or find some underhanded way to sabotage my renewed hope? As the celebration began to dim, Mika approached me, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of excitement and concern. "You were amazing. Did you see what just happened?" "Yes, but it doesn't feel so simple," I admitted, my heart still pounding. "What if he tries to turn this around? On us?" "I refuse to go back to that suffocating feeling of despair. Then we keep fighting," she replied, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. "We lean on each other. You're not alone in this, I promise. It won't always be easy, but leaning into the fight can lead us somewhere beautiful." We have to believe that her words washed over me like the steady certainty of a heartbeat, though they lacked the reassurance I craved. Before I could respond, a familiar face slipped through the doorway. It was Ben, a fellow student who had shared late-night study sessions with me, though we had drifted apart in recent months. "Hey, I just wanted to say," he began, a shy smile breaking through the tension. "That take on your last piece was incredible. I'm sorry for not supporting you earlier. Let's hang out and work together on something new." It'd be nice to have someone to share the journey with. His kindness felt like a breath of fresh air, but the weight of Mr. Calhoun's final words lingered like a specter behind me. I smiled back, gratitude blooming in my chest, yet the haunting uncertainty clung like a shadow. As we formed a small circle, I felt the warmth and support begin to knit itself into a fragile shield against the looming storm. But just as I allowed hope to creep in, an unexpected message chimed on my phone, cutting across the fragile atmosphere. It was a text from my mother. "We need to talk. Something important has come up." My heart dropped, the sudden shift ripping through the moment of harmony we'd just crafted. What could possibly be so urgent? I glanced at Mika and Ben, the temporary buoyancy tinged with dread. Mika's brows knitted in concern as she looked at me. "What is it?" "I don't know," I replied, a knot forming in my stomach. "But it doesn't feel good." I took a deep breath, bracing myself for whatever was about to unfold. With every shred of courage I had garnered today, I couldn't escape the feeling that just as new friendships were being forged, something darker was lurking just out of sight, ready to shatter this fragile joy. The rain began to patter against the window, each droplet a reminder of how quickly moments of joy can dissolve. The warmth from the applause still enveloped me, but the chill from my mother's message slowly seeped into the edges of my thoughts. It hung there, a dark cloud over my newfound spark, pressing heavily against the optimism that had begun to flourish. "Maybe you should take it outside," Mika suggested gently, her eyes reflecting understanding laced with a hint of worry. I nodded, feeling the urge to escape both the room and the whirlwind of emotion swirling within me. As I moved toward the exit, the laughter and chatter of my classmates faded, absorbed by the walls that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of their own. The hallway lay empty, the lights flickering slightly above, casting an almost eerie glow. I pulled out my phone, the screen glaring back at me like an unforgiving mirror, and read my mother's message again, hopeful somehow that it would dissolve or transform into something less foreboding. Another message came through, just one word. Now there was no comfort in the simplicity of it. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a trapped bird desperate for freedom. I stepped out into the cool air, the scent of rain mingling with the remnants of spring flowers stirring memories I didn't want to visit. I began to walk, the rhythm of my steps a loud counterpoint to the quiet of my thoughts. "Hey!" I heard Ben's voice behind me, breaking through the haze. He jogged up beside me, his brow furrowed. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." I could hear the tremor in my voice, the honesty wrapped in fragility. "I need to talk to my mom." "What about?" His concern was palpable, and I could feel the weight of his gaze, filled with unexpressed questions. "Something important," I murmured. "I just don't know what." An unexpected warmth radiated from my side as he stepped closer. "Whatever it is, I'm here for you," he said with sincerity that caught me off guard. In a world that felt so dark at times, his kindness felt like a flicker of light, insurgent against the looming shadow. "If you need a distraction after, let me know. We can mess around with some new music or talk about anything." "Thanks, Ben," I replied, grateful. But his support felt precarious, like a whisper in a windstorm. I eyed the parking lot, then turned back to him. "I have to go, just don't stay away too long," he said, a small smile attempting to pierce through my apprehension. I nodded, my heart heavy, but there was an unexpected brightness in his eyes that kept me aloft, however frail. Turning away as my breath steadied, I made my way to my family's car parked under an aging oak tree that looked nostalgic in the twilight. My mind spun, piecing together scenarios fraying at the edges. What could be so pressing that she couldn't just say it over the phone? As I approached the vehicle, I let out a shaky breath, praying whatever news awaited me wouldn't splinter the delicate threads of hope I had just begun to weave. The doors creaked as I slid into the passenger seat, my mother looking up from the chaos of papers scattered across her lap: bills, notes, what appeared to be half-collapsed envelopes. The moment our eyes locked, a tightness called in my stomach. "Hey, honey," she began, the warmth in her voice lingering like an unsettled note. "I'm sorry to pull you out like this, but we need to talk about, well, your dad." A rush of heat flooded my cheeks, instinctively igniting the walls I had thrown open just moments before. My father, a heavy weight draped over our family, an elusive figure more shadow than substance, suddenly loomed like a specter in the room. I swallowed hard, searching her face for clues that could lead me toward an understanding. "What about him?" My voice was barely a whisper, the fear deepening. She sighed, running her hands through her hair, a gesture of frustration that somehow echoed my own turbulent thoughts. "Huil, he wants to see you, and I think it might be good for us to consider it." The fabric of hope I had only just begun to stitch together began to unravel. I felt the sharp bite of betrayal tearing through me. "Have you lost your mind? He hasn't been part of our lives in forever. Why now?" "Because Hes trying," she insisted, her voice laced with desperation. "Hes been reaching out, and I think he finally understands the hurt he caused. No, I shot back, anger surging like a tidal wave. "Understanding doesn't change the past. He doesn't get to waltz back in like nothing happened. I don't want to talk to him." Tears pricked my eyes, a phenomenon I fought desperately, but they fell anyway, one, then two, until the world outside blurred into a rain-streaked haze that echoed the turmoil within. My mother leaned toward me, an arm outstretched, but I recoiled, panicking. The idea of reconciliation felt like shoving my hand back into a fire that had already burned me too many times before. "Please don't," I cried, the emotion spilling from me like a dam bursting, a release I never thought I would need. "Just don't make me do this. I can't." "I can't," she flinched, her heart in her eyes, but did not press the point. The silence between us swelled, emotions flooding a chasm we had spent years trying to navigate. And then a soft knock broke the moment, driving daggers into the air between us, shattering my fragile resolve. It came from the back window. I turned to see Mika standing there, concern etched across her features, a lifeline offered just by her presence. Waving her away felt impossible, her very essence was a reminder of the warmth I yearned to reclaim, yet here I sat, trapped in a cyclone of heartache. My gaze darted between the door and my mother, words lodged in my throat, tangled like barbed wire. Just as I started to take a breath, ready to speak my truth, my phone vibrated violently against my thigh. I pulled it from my pocket to see yet another unexpected message flash across the screen. This one wasn't from my mother or Ben. No, it was from Mr. Calhoun. "You have no idea what I've planned for you." Chilled to the bone, I felt every ounce of resolve unravel as reality crashed heavily against the fragile dreams I had built today. Details began to swim before my eyes, the overlapping burdens of my past, the complexities of new friendships, and the skewed expectations of my future. I had wanted to leap toward new beginnings, only to rediscover that shadows cling tighter in the face of bright lights. With one lingering gaze toward Mika's worried expression, uncertainty loomed over me again, and I felt myself teetering on that precipice, uncertain if I would soar or fall. The air within the car felt thick with unresolved tension, a palpable entity shifting like the shadows cast by the flickering street lamps outside. My mother's expression shifted from worry to something almost pleading. It was the kind of look that made my stomach twist. Just that morning, we had been laughing over a late breakfast, the smell of pancakes lingering perhaps a little too long. Now, that warmth felt like a forgotten moment, abandoned in the wake of impending dread. I turned my attention back to the glowing screen of my phone, the ominous message from Mr. Calhoun burning into my mind like an uninvited guest. What did he mean? I thought, a cold shiver racing down my spine, every nerve ending tingling with unease. I pressed my hand over the message, desperate to hold it back as if it could evaporate into the ether. "Sweetheart, I'm worried about how you'll handle this. my mother's voice trembled. You don't have to decide right now, but you're asking me to dive into a past I don't want to touch. I cut her off, my tone sharper than I intended, each word laden with frustration.
You think he can just walk back into my life and everything will be fine?
He was never there when it mattered. Her face fell, the hurt evident even amidst the harder lines of our conversation. I know you're angry. I get that, she said, her tone softening. But you also need to acknowledge what Hes trying to do now. Maybe it's a chance to heal. For both of you. A chance to heal? I scoffed internally. Healing wasn't a simple puzzle to solve. It was chaotic, painful and unyielding tide, dragging you under when you least expected it. I don't want a chance, Mom. I want him to leave us alone. Why can you see that? The silence that followed felt like a weight pressing against my chest. My breath grew shallow, each inhalation a reminder of the battle raging inside. A part of me longed to unfold the layers of my pain in front of her. I wanted to scream, cry, and shake the walls of disappointment that had boxed me in. But another part pulled back, barricading my emotions behind layers of resentment and fear. The knock at the window became insistent, and I found Mika's eyes searching mine with a kind of fierce determination. The sight brought a flicker of reminder, a soft urge to reconnect with the world outside this emotional storm. I wanted to reach for that warmth again, the simple reminder that kindness existed in a world often overshadowed by sorrow and confusion. Let her in, I said softly to my mother, my voice almost a plea. Are you sure? Her reticence was evident, offering me a way through without needing to break. Yeah. I banged my fist against my thigh as if it could ground me. I need someone. My mother nodded slowly, and I watched her expression shift toward hesitation mixed with concern, but the locked doors clicked open. Mika slipped inside, her face a picture of compassion wrapped in worry. She settled beside me, her presentient anchor in turbulent waters. What's going on? She asked carefully, her voice weaving through the remnants of unresolved emotions. I took a deep breath, but the words refused to come out, swirling like leaves caught in an unrelenting wind. I glanced at my mother, who nodded slightly as if giving me permission. My dad, he wants to see me, I finally managed to reveal, the statement like a fragile soap bubble suspending within the air, a revelation that felt both too enormous and too insignificant to share. Mika blinked, her brow knitting together in empathy. How do you feel about that? The question landed heavily, a double-edged sword. I feel trapped, I admitted. Like I'm supposed to forgive him for everything, but I can't. I just can't. Mika reached for my hand, her grip steadying me, surrounding my trembling fingers with warm strength that felt foreign yet comforting. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. It's okay to take your time. A small sigh escaped me. But what if in making a mistake? What if I can handle it? Mika leaned closer, her eyes shining with fierce belief. You'll never know unless you give yourself space to process it. You're the only one who knows how it feels. Just take it one day at a time. Remember, I'm here with you. I looked down at our intertwined hands, the gesture small in the face of everything, yet the connection sent sparks of warmth through the depths of my worries. In sharing this darkness, Mika offered an unexpected kindness, a reminder I wasn't facing this tempest alone. We should get out of the car, she finally suggested, glancing out. The rain is lighter now. I nodded, relief flooding through me as the thought of stepping into the world beyond the confines of heated arguments brightened the edges of my imagination. With hesitant movements, we slid out of the car, the cool drizzle wrapping around us like an old embrace. We started walking slowly down the sidewalk, my mind still racing with the implications of my father's anticipated return and the weight of my mother's hopes. The sounds of distant laughter from nearby homes mingled with the rain, creating a bittersweet melody that tugged at my heart. As we walked, I could see the glow of the old music shop coming into view. The neon sign flickered against the shadows, promising a sanctuary within the beat of pressed keys and strummed strings. A sudden urge surged within me. Let's go in. I want to play. Mika bestowed her familiar smile, a beacon of faith piercing the lingering fog. You should. It'll help clear your head. As we stepped inside, the warmth enveloped us like a warm hug, the notes of a piano flowing freely in the background, wrapping around my heart with strands of melody. I walked toward the piano parked in the corner, fingers itching to touch the cool, familiar keys. But as I lifted the lid, another message buzzed through on my phone, the screen lit up with an unexpected clarity. The return of a name I hadn't expected to see again. We need to talk. The chill ran through me like ice water, and as I looked up, my gaze collided with my mother's through the glass pane at the entrance. The uncertainty rekindled within me, even as the door to the music shop loomed like a welcoming embrace, and I felt it thin, a wrenching disconnect between my desires and the crashing waves of reality pushing me toward depths I feared to tread alone. Would I sink? Would I stay afloat? Both futures pressed against me, each one clawing for acknowledgement, leaving me suspended on the brink of something new and terrifying. The quietness of the music shop enveloped me like a thick fog, muffling the chaos swirling in my mind. The piano beckoned, its polished surface glinting under the soft overhead lights, inviting yet intimidating. I approached it as if it were a portal, knowing that once I played, I would have to face the tide of emotions rising within me. Yet I needed an escape, perhaps just for a moment. Mika moved to the side, leaning against a shelf lined with forgotten vinyl records, her eyes observing me with a mix of concern and encouragement. With a deep breath, I settled onto the bench, the coolness of the keys sending a familiar shiver through me. The world outside faded, the gentle hum of the shop shifted my focus inward, preserving a moment of solitude amidst the storm. As my fingers danced across the keys, I let the music flow, each note reflecting fragments of my tangled emotions, the longing, the hurt, the anger, but also the flickers of hope I struggled to hold on to. It all came pouring out, enveloping me in a cloak of bittersweet resonance, the chords speaking louder than my voice ever could. But mid-song, a sudden clap of thunder jolted me back. It was almost as if the sky conspired to echo my turmoil. I faltered, stopping abruptly. My heart raced, the storm outside a palpable reminder of the tempest brewing within. In that moment of silence, I felt that reminder of my truth. Distant laughter transformed into muffled whispers, echoing my fears. I might have been speaking to my father soon, an uninvited reunion looming over me like an ominous cloud. "Hey," Mika said softly, stepping closer. "You sounded amazing." A weak smile crossed my lips, but it didn't reach my eyes. "I don't know what I'm doing. I can't keep pretending that everything will be okay just because I can play the piano." "You're not pretending. You're processing," she replied gently. "And sometimes, music is the best way to do that. It gives a voice to what's inside, doesn't it?" As much as I wanted to agree, a dark wave of frustration washed over me. "But why do I have to process it at all? Why can't I just be done with it?" The words spilled out before I could rein them in, raw and unfiltered. "I'm tired, Mika. I'm tired of trying to fit pieces together that don't belong." Mika's eyes softened, reflecting the storm I felt brewing beneath the surface. "You don't have to fit them all right now. It's okay to not have everything sorted out. Just allow yourself to feel whatever that may be. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be scared. Just don't do it alone." The reassurance wrapped around me like the warmth of the piano itself, yet even within her kindness, I felt the shadow of my father's possible re-emergence loom large. What kind of man walked back into a life he shattered without so much as a glance back? No matter how many times I rehearsed the questions in my mind, they all circled back to one undeniable truth: had abandoned me, extinguished the light of what could have been. Suddenly, the bell above the shop door chimed, and my mother entered, looking disoriented by the change in scenery. Her gaze quickly met mine, I searching for answers that felt too heavy to voice aloud. I realized, in that instant, that she was carrying the weight of her own struggles, one I had seldom acknowledged while wrapped up in my own. "Mika," my mother said, summoning the courage I admired but often wished she held for me. "Could we talk for a moment?" Alone, the request hung in the air, heavy and thick, like the clouds outside ready to burst. It felt like a tether was being frayed between me and Mika, an anchor that would be pulled away when I needed it most. My heart raced as I looked between them. I wasn't sure how much more I could bear, a conversation that could hint at decisions that would define not just this moment, but possibly my entire future. Mika glanced at me, her eyes searching for a sign, offering a fleeting smile that braved the uncertainty. "You can do this," she whispered, squeezing my hand before letting go. "And he'll be right outside." The moment she walked away, it felt as if the weight of the world had pressed down heavily against my chest, and I found my breath catching in the back of my throat. My mother settled beside me, her gaze brimming with a sincerity that underscored the fractures in our relationship, a mother's unyielding hope pushed against the wall of the daughter's defiance. I know this is hard, she began, her voice trembling slightly. But why don't we talk about what you're feeling? We're in this together. Reluctance swirled within me, but I turned toward her and saw the glimmers of desperation behind her warmth, reminiscent of the laughter from that morning that now felt like a ghost. You want me to forgive him, don't you? It's not so simple, she admitted, her voice almost breaking. But I know it's more complicated for you than it is for me. I just want you to understand that whatever you decide, you're not alone. But as she spoke, the memory of the message from Mr. Calhoun weighed even heavier on me. Suddenly, the once irresistible desire drawing me toward this conversation felt overshadowed. Sometimes I think you don't really understand how it feels to be abandoned, how his words might just be empty strolls back into my life. A moment of silence roared in, and the look on her face, a mixture of pain and concern, struck me harder than any words could. I hadn't wanted to step on that wound, but here I was, carving it open. I am here for you, she murmured, a softness threading through her pain. I will always try to be, but in the depth of those words, I knew there was an unseen struggle, an unbearable weight carried from the decisions of the past that had left irrevocable marks on us both. Just then, my phone buzzed once. A new message appeared that sent icy chills down my spine, a foreboding tremor that twisted my stomach into knots. Tonight is critical. We can't afford any distractions. My grip tightened around the phone, and I caught my mother watching. We both understood that this was more than just reconciliation, it was about survival. The weight of the past was surfacing, and I had to decide if I would dive into its depths or allow it to drown me. The cracked veneer of possibility I had begun to build felt as if it was teetering on the brink. Would I face the storm now? Would I risk losing everything I had clung to for so long? I stared into my mother's eyes, searching for answers that hung somewhere between right and wrong, and in that moment, the entire world seemed to hold its breath, suspended on the razor's edge of my choice. The air thickened with uncertainty, every second stretching painfully as the tension between my mother and me crackled like the distant thunder outside. I could feel my pulse quicken, echoing resolutely in the silence, yet her presence, a steady warmth, rooted me, stirring something deep within. I don't even know what I want anymore, I admitted, voice almost cracking under the weight of everything left unsaid. I could see the flash of understanding in her eyes, an invitation for truth, but just as quickly, it morphed into something softer, protective. I don't either, she confessed, her gaze drifting momentarily to the floor as if searching for hidden answers. But we are not defined by him, sweetheart. This isn't just about your father. It's you. It's us. But the thought did little to soothe the storm in my heart. My father's impending re-emergence loomed like an unwanted shadow, darkening everything that should have been a moment of connection. A part of me longed for understanding, for my mom to truly hear what I was failing to articulate, the ache of being left behind, while another part of me was terrified of the fragility lying beneath the surface of our discussion. Why did you let him go? I blurted before I could stop myself, the question slicing through the air, laden with accusation and hurt. You had a choice then, and now I'm supposed to just forgive him? My mother flinched, and I immediately regretted my words. They'd spilled out in the heat of emotional turmoil. But she didn't rebuke me, nor did she ignore the question. She held my gaze, allowing the weight of it to settle around us. I thought it was best for you, she replied carefully, her voice strained like a fraying string. But I see now how lonely you've felt, how angry. I thought I was protecting you. I wished I could feel the comfort of those words, yet they felt empty against the reality of my experience. But you weren't. You walked away too. The anger surfacing in me felt like an old friend, so familiar yet so unwelcome. My heart raced, a coming storm clashing against the one already raging outside. I didn't want to dwell in this darkness, but it had become a troublesome part of me, ingrained like the music that played so beautifully yet painfully on the piano. I'm sorry, I should have fought harder, she whispered, her voice barely audible against the backdrop of raindrops tapping against the shop windows, almost like nature weeping alongside us. Maybe if he had fought for you, it wouldn't have to be so complicated. As soon as the words left my lips, I regretted them again. It was like thrusting a knife into the memory of everything I wanted to say, to express ID struck where it hurt the most. All the sacrifices she made, the battles she fought in silence, the mask she wore for me, how could I have forgotten that for a fleeting moment of anger? Just then, a worn but momentous family photograph slipped from the edge of the piano, the glass frame catching the light and breaking the spell of our heated words. With a quick motion, I reached to pick it up. In the picture, we looked happy, a smiling duo, mother and daughter, before the fracture lines, before the abandonment, before everything dulled to grey. "Maybe I'm not ready to understand," I said softly, holding the photograph like an anchor, desperate to decipher what lay beneath the surface of buried memories. Maybe I'm too broken. The silence in the room was deafening. I was losing my balance on the tightrope strung between past and present, teetering on the brink of disarray. My mother reached forward to touch my hand, warmth radiating through our fingers. But just as comfort began to seep in, the shop door swung open with a creak, shattering the moment. In walked an older gentleman, drenched from the rain, a look of urgent determination etched across his face. I blinked, taken aback, as he approached with purpose. Are you Jordan's daughter?" His voice shook slightly, and my heart raced. There was something frantic, something deep within his gaze that made my pulse quicken. "Yes," I replied cautiously, unease creeping in. "I'm sorry to intrude." He placed his sopping hat on the counter, and my mother stood up, visibly bracing herself for whatever news he carried. "I know this is unexpected, but you need to be aware your father." My breath caught, dread pooling in my stomach like a stone. I could hardly breathe. I felt my heart pounding against my ribcage, desperate to break free, desperate for the truth. "Your father is in trouble," he continued, his voice thick with tension, scrapes of regret evident behind his words. "Has been looking for you, but it isn't for the reasons you may think." "What do you mean?" The question slipped out of my mouth, strained and fearful of what lay ahead. "I need you to come with me." "It's urgent," he insisted, agitatedly wiping the rain from his forehead. In that moment, the world spun out of control. My heart raced, fluttering, fear and confusion intertwining like a dark dance. I glanced back at my mother, her eyes widened in a desperate plea to remain here, to tether me to the life we had built together amidst all the chaos. But as I surveyed the face of this stranger, the threat of an impending storm hanging in the balance dimmed, overshadowed by the gravity of an unexpected nightmare. The tangled threads of my emotions tightened around my throat, locking me in a moment far too heavy to bear. Would I untangle them now, or would I let them bind me forever? As the man waited, a sense of urgency fueled within me, igniting a flicker of defiance against the fear. Could I stand up for myself amid this chaos? Would I dare face the truth that loomed ahead? One question spiraled through my mind: was this the moment that would decide my fate and unlock a long-desired confrontation with the father I buried deep inside? Or would it mean tethering my heart to a chaos that had no clear resolution, leading only to the shadows of a past I might never escape? The air in the room shifted, an electric tension crackling alongside the raindrops still drumming rhythmically against the windows. I felt weightless yet anchored, caught in the pull of necessity and fear. My mother's eyes gleamed with unspoken fears, a silent conversation that carried the weight of a lifetime and the impact of a single moment. How could I leave her behind? But the gravity of the man's presence drew me in, the urge to know the truth battling fiercely with the trembling hope that maybe, just maybe, this chaos could make sense. "Please," the man urged again, his voice compelling against the pounding rain. "Time is of the essence." For a moment, I hesitated, grappling with the invisible cords that bound my heart: love for my mother, the longing for understanding, and the need to confront the man who had haunted our lives for so long. I felt torn, and the melody of the piano echoed faintly in the back of my mind, a poignant reminder of both beauty and sorrow. Every instinct screamed at me to stay, yet an unquenchable curiosity pushed against the walls of my resolve. "What trouble is he in?" I finally asked, grappling with the urgency that pulsed between us, hoping for answers that weren't shrouded in ulterior motives. The man's eyes shifted to the floor, a fleeting glimpse of regret washing over his features before he met my gaze again. "Has made some poor decisions, and now has in a situation that could hurt him, and potentially you." "I don't understand," I whispered, my voice almost drowned out by the rain's furious drumming. My mind raced, scrambling for clarity. What could possibly be so bad that it concerns me? With every heartbeat that echoed around the small shop, my world pitched dangerously, a delicate ceramic on the edge of a table. I glanced at my mother, desperately hoping for any sign that could anchor me, some gesture that would indicate I was making the right choice. Her face was a mosaic of worry, strength, and love unspooled from the years, and in that moment, I saw her not just as my protector but as another human ensnared in the web of our shared history. "I know you're afraid," the man interrupted gently, "but you need to know your father hasn't forgotten you. He wants to make amends, but right now, things are very complicated." "Complicated," I repeated, tasting the word bitterly. Wasn't that the very definition of my relationships, of this very moment? My father's recovery, my mother's past decisions, the constant thrum of unresolved pain that enveloped our lives like an ill-fitting cloak. "And you expect me to believe he wants to change? After so long?" "That's why I'm here," he implored, frustration mixed with guilt coloring his tone. "He needs you. Hes terrified of losing you again." At that revelation, I felt a flicker of something deep within, the pulse of hope intertwined with the tangle of anguish. There were so many pieces of my father left scattered in the wreckage, perhaps it was time to sift through them. But just as I thought I could step through the door of uncertainty, I caught sight of the hesitation in my mother's eyes. The solid ground I had relied on was faltering beneath me. "Mom," I began, but the words got caught in the thicket of emotions that engulfed us. "I can't say this is the choice I would want for you," she finally murmured, her voice trembling as if reaching for a part of me she feared losing. "But whatever you decide, just know I am here always." And in that moment, the storm seemed to settle slightly, even if only in the confines of my heart. What if Hes still the same man who walked away all those years ago? I pressed, voice shaking with doubt. "Then you'll know," she replied firmly, eyes glistening with resolve, hers a courageous voice pushing back against the tide, while my heart thumped violently in my chest, contending with my own trepidations. "Please," the man said, almost pleading now. "Hes taking risks that could lead to consequences far beyond what you can imagine. If you care at Ali care, but it's complicated, too." My own frustrations burst from me, a fire igniting between my words. The rawness of the moment felt like glass shattering, shards of confusion and grief scattered across the emotional landscape. "I can't just walk away from her, that's why you need to come with me," he insisted, eyebrows knit tightly. "This isn't just about him anymore." A new wave of anxiety crashed over me. With conflicting dreams of who I wanted my father to be, every grain of sand in my hourglass threatened to slip through my fingers. In that moment, a singular thought pierced through my tumult, both terrifying and intoxicating. What if this was the key to finally freeing myself from the chains that bound my heart? As the silent moments ticked by, in that small shop dimly lit by the glow of the streetlights filtering through the glass, I felt the fabric of years weave into this one explosive moment. I could feel the weight of my history pressing down, and as the distant rumble of thunder echoed once more, it suddenly struck me. I didn't know what was waiting on the other side of that door, but the thought of missing a chance, of letting the opportunity slip by like the fleeting raindrops, was unbearable. "I'll go," I breathed, the words like a vow suspended in the tension that bonded us all. But before the man could respond, I turned back to my mother, wanting to imprint the very essence of her strength within me. "Promise me you'll stay if Hes still the same. I need you here." "Always," she whispered back, tears shimmering in her eyes, the flicker of hope and dread illuminating a path I longed to understand. As I stepped closer to the door, the storm outside began to fade, its crackling intensity dwarfed by the looking glass of my soul, once shattered, now begging for understanding. With one last glance back at my mother, I crossed the threshold, stepping into the unknown alongside the echoes of estranged love and redemption. But just as we reached the edge of the stoop, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, twisting the night air into something heavier yet pulsating with urgency. I turned back, against every fiber urging me to move forward, and saw my mother clutching the photograph tightly in her hand, an unspoken warning carved into her expression that whispered things I still didn't comprehend. Time was escaping, and the pieces of the puzzle were still strewn around me, chaotic and unresolved. And as the rain began to pour harder, washing the remnants of that dreadful moment away, I realized that perhaps redemption was not a destination, it was a journey filled with uncertainty, and I was about to take the first step into a skin of vulnerability I had long shunned. The car ride felt endless, each mile woven with anxiety and unspoken fears. My heart thudded in a frantic rhythm, echoing the apprehension that gripped my chest. The raindrops raced down the window, blurring the scenery outside into a muted wash of color, just like the confusion swirling inside me. I stole glances at the stranger behind the wheel, a man whose presence hummed with urgency and tension. He was a harbinger of some long-awaited confrontation, the embodiment of my father's scattered whispers drifting from the past. As we pulled up to an unassuming building nestled between towering trees, a shiver ran down my spine. This was it, everything I had avoided for so long now loomed before me, a threshold heavy with the weight of uncertainty. I inhaled sharply, my breath hitching in my throat as I felt his gaze on me, steady yet inscrutable.
Are you ready?
He asked, voice almost soft in the surrounding silence. His question pulled me back into reality, leaving me with only the echoes of anxious thoughts. Point 2 Don't know, I stammered, my heart racing against the tide of doubt. What was I stepping into? The thought of confronting the man who had left scars on my heart turned my stomach. Everything I had navigated to reach this moment felt like a fragile facade, ready to shatter like glass. Behind us, I could see the glimmer of streetlights slowly vanishing in the fading twilight, casting shadows on the road I had left behind. Whatever happens, remember you are strong, he said, and for some reason, that did little to soothe the storm brewing within me. I nodded mutely, reluctantly pushing open the car door. As I stepped out into the cool evening air, the sharp scent of rain tinged with anticipation enveloped me like a shroud. I followed the man across the cracked pavement towards the building, each step a battle between fear and hope. Shadows clung to us as we entered, the dim light inside creating a surreal atmosphere. The air seemed electric, buzzing with emotions and possibilities, yet I felt weighed down by dread, lost in the echoes of childhood fears that surged back to the surface. My heart raced with questions. What was he hoping for? What could I bear to face? We reached a door at the end of the hallway, its frame battered but sturdy, filled with a lifetime of painful memories I had tried to forget. The man paused, glancing back at me. Are you sure? As my heart thudded heavily against my ribcage, I reached for the handle, my hand trembling when the reality settled in. I was about to confront the very man who had once made me feel like a fraction of myself. Yes, I whispered, the word barely escaping my lips as I stepped through the threshold. Inside, the room was dimly lit. It smelled of something stale, a blend of old regrets and forgotten hopes. Standing in the corner, staring out the window, was the man I hadn't seen in years. His presence was still formidable, even in defeat, an unyielding spirit that flickered uncertainly with each passing moment. Jordan, he said softly, turning to face me. My heart sank. The voice was laden with years of emotion. I wasn't sure you'd come. Why did you want to see me? I replied, each word a deliberate shot into the thick silence that enveloped us. A rush of vulnerability hit me, mingling with the anger I had fought so long to contain. He shifted slightly, and I could see the lines etched on his face, chronicling a tale too deep for me to understand. I wanted to apologize, he said, his voice hitching. For everything, for leaving, for the pain I caused. I felt the weight of his gaze on me, a fragmented mirror reflecting the regret that resided within him, yet I remained unmoved. Words are just words unless they mean something, I shot back, anger simmering beneath the surface. What do you expect me to do? Understand, perhaps? He offered hesitantly, his eyes glistening with sincerity. I've spent years battling my demons, and I thought of you every single day. The truth is I never stopped loving you. Those words, meant to heal, felt like a sharp stone thrown into a calm pond, disruptive, rippling outward. I had lived in the shadows of that love for years, wondering what it would mean to reclaim a father who had walked away. Love doesn't build walls, Dad, I retorted, feeling my voice crack. You're right, he conceded, his expression tinged with sorrow. I've hurt you, and for that, I'm sorry. I've brought this chaos into your life. But if you can let me in, I can try to make it right. We can have a chance to be whole again. The vulnerability in his voice pulled at the strings of my heart, yet the shadows of the past clung like ivy choking a garden. Do you even know what that means? I pressed, needing him to understand the magnitude of the emotions I'd carried alone for so long. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time, I saw the cracks in his facade, a fracture in the armor he had worn. I've made mistakes, but I want to learn. Parenting isn't just a label, it's a commitment to stay. As those words hung heavy in the air between us, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't anticipated, a rekindled hope battling against the echoes of rejection.
Could this man really be willing to change? Was it unfair of me to even entertain the idea?
But just when the possibility began to fill the cracks of my heart, the phone in my pocket buzzed sharply, snapping me back to reality. I pulled it out, my heart sinking as I read the latest message: your failure is imminent. Remember, I'm always watching. The chill that ran through me was icy, freezing every emotion I had begun to acknowledge. Suddenly, the contrast of faces, the man before me and the ache of Mr. Calhoun's threat, battled for space in my mind, drawing a line between the past I had been trying to escape and the reality that threatened to shackle me once more. I looked back at my father, battling the tide of conflicting emotions that surged inside me.
What's happening here?
I demanded, my voice crystal clear, devoid of all hesitation.
You expect me to forgive you while another part of my life is unraveling? What do you mean?
He stepped towards me, confusion an open book on his face. That man, Mr. Calhoun, I said, the word spilling forth in a rush, desperate for acknowledgement. He tore me down, and he hasn't stopped.
He's watching every step I take.
I'm scared, I'm terrified that every chance he'll get will be clouded by his darkness. For the first time, I saw a flicker of understanding in my father's eyes, not as the man I wished he had been, but simply as a fellow human grappling with his own demons. I can't let you face this alone, he said quietly, determination brewing in the depths of his gaze. You have to know I may not have been there for you, but I want to help you now. In that moment of raw honesty, I felt the heaviness of the past begin to lift, perhaps reshaped into something anew, brimming with possibility.
And if you can't?
I dared to ask, knowing all too well the price of broken promises. I'll work harder than ever to be someone worthy of your trust, he said, conviction lacing his words. Not just as your father, but as someone who respects your strength. The walls between us began to crumble, but the message from Mr. Calhoun still lingered like a storm cloud, threatening to obscure this delicate moment of hope. I had to ask, I needed closure.
What would you do to make this right?
Because right now, words don't seem like enough anymore. There are many things I can't change, but I can try to be present. Together, we can face difficult choices if you let me, he pledged, a spark igniting in the shadows of his sincerity. And I can help you tackle whatever is looming in your life, every step of the way. As the night deepened and the walls of fear began to fade into tentative familiarity, I found myself teetering on hope's precipice. I still felt unsteady, an uncertain dance between love and forgiveness. But perhaps, just perhaps, this could be the start of redemption for both of us. I glanced toward the window, where the first glimmers of dawn began to pierce through clouds of darkness, casting a wash of soft light across the room. Okay, I breathed, testing the waters of what lay ahead. Let's try. With those words, a fragile connection began to weave itself anew, a thread of resilience that could bind us together, unraveling the fragments of our shared past if we both dared to chase the light. And so we stood there, two souls tangled in a history neither could unwrite, yet both prepared to pen a new chapter together. As the first rays of dawn broke through, illuminating a path forward, I realized it would take time, patience, and an endless reservoir of strength. But in acknowledging our shared struggle, I felt the chains of yesterday begin to loosen, the promise of tomorrow shimmering like sunlight breaking through the haze. In that moment, I understood, we might each be flawed and broken, but together, we could learn to build something beautiful from the wreckage. The future was uncertain, but as long as we faced it together, we could find a way to truly heal. And with each moment that passed, as I prepared to take my first step towards that shared journey, I found the strength to whisper an unshakable promise: I would not run away anymore. We would face this storm side by side, no matter how turbulent the seas might be. Whatever lay ahead, I felt ready to embrace it all. Together. And as the sun stretched across the horizon, my heart filled with the simple hope that this time, things could be different. I resolved to carry that thought with me always. In the wreckage of fractured dreams, there buds the possibility of renewal. And sometimes, it's the moment of despair that offers the greatest potential for rebirth.